Hello, everyone. Charlie here, and I'm here today with a good friend of mine, Sonya. And Sonya will be talking about astrology, and we're both going to be going into a little bit about what 2020 holds and the times that we're in and where we're moving to with these big astrological events that Sonia's been talking to me about. And I was like, look, I just have to get you onto my YouTube channel so you can share this with more people because it sounds important. So welcome, Sonya. It's very excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. I'm excited to be here, and it's an honor to be able to talk to your audience.
Awesome. So maybe just share with everyone, just very briefly, like your journey with astrology and why do you like it, and yeah.
Yeah, so I started out as a teacher, and so most people don't see astrology transitioning from being a teacher. And I got this reading from an astrologer, and he said, "Do you want to do what I'm doing?" And I looked at him like he was crazy. And I said, "No, I don't think so." But then I took some classes, and my teacher said, "You actually have the perfect combination for astrology. You have the ancient and the modern ruler in your first house of self. And you have a lot of Aquarius energy, which is the sign that rules astrology." So it was kind of like the universe told me, okay, it's time to stop teaching and it's time to do what you're really supposed to do, your destiny. And that's where I am.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm very excited to have you on. I'm sure I'm going to learn many things as well today, which I'm excited about. So let's move straight into it and let's talk about the year 2020 and what's happening in 2020. Like, as I look out into the world, it looks pretty crazy. Financially, things have gone crazy. People have rushed to the supermarket to buy certain things and things have been running out. But it seems to have stabilized a little bit now, especially with, the coronavirus and these things. People are maybe a little bit less fearful. But I'm curious, like, what astrologically is happening and what do you see happening for 2020?
Right. So you're right that we're in the calm within the storm. So it appears everything is going back to normal, but really we're just getting started. And I'll be showing you with some charts. I'll be explaining it, but we're smack dab in the middle of two bookends that we have this year. And an evolutionary astrologer that I follow, Brian Coulter, he calls this the year of the Great Awakening. So we're taking all of these planetary influences that are very rare, and we're becoming awake to what's really happening. And it's going to really take off in actually 2021. There are significant events that have to do with, from what I can see, the possibility that there will be a restructuring of the economy, supply chains, and I'll be showing you which planets are interacting that would make that a possibility.
Okay, so tell me about the bookends. You mentioned two bookends. When was the first and when was the end bookend or something like that?
And good question, each bookend is with other events, so they're amplified. But the first one was on January 12th. A lot of people knew about that one. That was Saturn Pluto. And I'll explain what Saturn Pluto means a little bit later. But that one coincided with an eclipse, and it was the first eclipse of 6 that we'll have this year, which makes it even more strong. That hasn't happened for 500 years. And the last time that it happened, we had the beginning of the slave trade, unfortunately, in the US, and we had the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. So that's how big of a deal that is. And the other one is Jupiter Saturn, and that's a very significant. That is the Great Conjunction. That is what the astrologers call the Great Conjunction. So if that one is great, and that one is every 600 years, the other one that we just had that we thought was too much, that happened every 500 years. This one's entering us into the age of Aquarius. This is where we're learning to take control of our lives. We're rebelling a little bit more. We're going to see that people are going to question things. They're not going to take everything for granted that they hear.
Yeah, and I think that's already happening. You know, you can just look a little bit on social media or a little bit on, and people are definitely questioning a lot. Um, so yeah, we're in interesting times. So what in 2020, do you have, like, you mentioned the two bookend dates, 12th
Right.
of January and somewhere I think in December at the end of the year for that
Hmm.
great one. Now, is there stuff happening in between that? Can you share with us what's happening planetary throughout 2020 at different key time points?
Yes, and I would like to share the slides that I have so that we can
Okay.
go through and I can explain. So I'm going to do that right now. I'll go back to this slide, but I would like to answer your question about what we're going through right now. And this is the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And why this is so significant is because the last time we had a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction was in 2008. And that was when the financial crisis hit and we were backing the banks and the Fed was printing money so that we had a bailout. And this is right around when we have this July 5th eclipse. And I want to reiterate that eclipses are times of great change. So even if we just had an eclipse, it would be significant. But we had one on the 21st of June. We're having one again on the 5th. And it's coinciding with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Now, something people should be aware of is Jupiter is retrograde, so that slows him down a little bit. And he's also not happy because he's in the sign of Capricorn, and the two of them could not be more opposite. Jupiter is expansion, it's wealth, it's abundance, generosity. And Capricorn is constriction, control, just making everything, like dampening it down. So he's not happy. He's with the same planet he was in 2008 when there was a financial crisis. And then to add to that, we have these major eclipses. Now, the other event some people should be aware of, because this is going to affect even peaceful people, is the fact that the day before, Mars entered its own sign. When a planet enters its own sign, it becomes stronger. Now, Mars and Aries, these two, are about war. They're about anger. And Mars is staying in his sign 3 times as long as he usually stays in a sign. He usually stays in a sign for 2 months. He's going to stay for 6 months. So we're talking until January that we have this energy. And the reason why is he goes retrograde for part of it, meaning he looks like he's going backward. So we're talking a lot of pent-up energy. And if you have Mars retrograde in your solar return chart, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to have a physical outlet. You have to ask an astrologer for help to see that. But everyone's going to need to take that pent-up energy and express it in a healthy way, or else, Aries is youth, and that could be, a problem where people are just showing their aggression outwardly.
So when does Mars move into Aries?
Mars moves into Aries June 28th, 29th. Like it's in that 2
So
days
in
range.
about a week or something.
Correct.
So this is all happening within the week. So you're saying Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is June 30th, but you're saying that will come more into effect on July 5th?
Right. So we'll start, every time you have one of these major conjunctions or eclipse, you feel it before and after. It's not like that day and then we're done. And eclipses in general, you feel the effects of them for 6 months. So you'll start to feel a little bit before, and then boom. So this is a 6-month issue. Not only because the eclipse is happening, this conjunction is happening, but Mars is going to be in its sign for 6 months. And I just want to say, historically, the last time Mars was in its sign and going retrograde, Germany invaded Russia. So it's important to study the history of it so you know what kind of energy you could be dealing with.
Okay, that sounds intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even looking back to, a few weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, when there was a lot of rioting and these things, like that seems like it was really intense, but you're saying that, it could even get more intense, however that may look.
Right. And I do have something else to add to that. Saturn, when the writing happened, Saturn was in Aquarius. It will go back into Capricorn. So I think that won't be so intense. Saturn in Aquarius was when the Rodney King riots happened in the 90s, and it's also when the rioting happened this year. So Saturn will come back into the same sign of Aquarius at the end of the year.
Huh.
And that's why I'm saying it's going to get more intense. We felt it not too long ago, and we're going to feel it again very intensely near the end of the year when Saturn goes back into Aquarius on December 20th.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I know a little bit about astrology. And yeah, Aquarius, I think, is like forward thinking and revolution and these type of things. So when Saturn moves into that, I imagine that's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Breakdown of the structures or these type of things.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. So there's stuff coming up in the next week. There's a lot of eclipses by the sounds of it, which sound like they're a pretty big deal. Mars is moving into Aries, which is just, you get the feeling of intensity around that. Mars is a very intense planet, and so is Aries. I have more Libra in my chart, but I'm very aware when a lot of people have a lot of Aries. It's very, very direct. Lots of boundaries, a lot about like me and I. So, okay. So it sounds like there's some things coming in the near future. And I think if you were saying this without anything that we've seen in the last, 3 or 4 months, it would be like, oh yeah, like probably not much, like, we'll just probably continue on. But to have gone through the last sort of 4 months, it's like, wow, like the whole world has changed, has fundamentally changed. And we'll probably never go back to what it was, ever. There'll be just a new way of doing things and being, and, for better or worse, we'll find out. But there's a huge shift that's happened. And then just with you saying all this, it's like, okay, like where are we? Who knows how this will show up in physical reality? I hope you have some tips for us towards the end to support us. But yeah, okay, interesting.
I do. I definitely do. I don't have all bad news to share. I do have one good piece of news to share before I head into some other pieces. Just for all of you who know about Venus, Venus is the sign of beauty, love, abundance. And this year, she was supposed to rise around June 10th, and she rose pretty much on time. And the astrologers that I follow, they say that's a very good sign. So even though we're going through growing pains as a world, as humanity, at least we have Venus going for us right now. Like she will be supporting us, and she's actually going, she's stationing today, and she's going direct after this point. So we're at least going to get help from there, Charlie.
Awesome. I'm glad.
Yes.
Cool. So is there anything else in 2020 that you want to highlight before we continue on?
I do. I have 2 other events. I'd actually like to go backward just to explain why we're heading into more intensity, so that I can explain the last bookend. I'm going to go back. That's the last one. Let's go to this one. So this is what we all know as the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which happened, the last one happened 500 years ago in Capricorn. And it coincided with our first lunar eclipse. And what was interesting about this one is you can see all of these planets in Capricorn, and that's called a stellium. When 3 or more planets are in one sign, it's a stellium, and it adds extra emphasis. So on January 10th, right before the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, we had a lunar eclipse. So Saturn was burning the planets that were next to it, because it burns planets within 3 degrees. And you can see that's 20, 22, and 22. So that's not a good sign. And these 2 planets are basically the great malefics. Saturn's called the great malefic. It brings insurmountable challenges. and it's squaring Uranus. This is what I really wanted you to see about this one. Uranus is in Taurus. Taurus is about your basic needs and money. So Uranus is the great disruptor. And if it's squaring these malefics, we're basically saying the structure is dying. That's Pluto. It's going to be rebirthed. But in the meantime, this red line is a square. It's tension. We have to disrupt what's not working, the structures, Saturn, that are not working. And I pointed at the moon because the moon is the people. And Cancer is our needs, our comfort, our security. So the government, Saturn, and the crisis from Pluto is opposing or creating this push and pull with what humanity needs. And Uranus is basically saying we're going to disrupt that and we're going to create new systems. It's just going to be, like I said, there are going to be a lot of growing pains. So that one I wanted you to know about so that you would understand the last event, which I'm going to head off to now.
And that was in 2020. That was January 12th, 2020. So that's already happened in a way.
Right. It set the tone. It set the theme for the year.
Okay.
And so everything that we've experienced, we're right in the middle right now. But everything that we've experienced is leading up to this December 14th total solar eclipse and the Great Conjunction. So a total solar eclipse, the reason why it's important is because solar eclipses have to do with leaders. And if it's a total, that means that it's covered and it's more powerful. That alone would catch an astrologer's eye. But when you have what's called the Great Conjunction, which I explained earlier, of Saturn, which is the government, the structures, with Jupiter, which is the world and money, you have that in combination. You can see that they're about to move into Aquarius, the sign of the rebel and revolution. It shows that there's going to be a lot of tension with the leaders. And throughout US history, the Great Conjunction has had a very intense effect in the life of the United States president. It shows time and time again. I think Jefferson was one of the only ones who didn't have anything happen to him. But the other presidents, and we're heading into election times, have had something significant happen in their lives at the time of Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions. Now this one in particular is in Aquarius and hasn't happened for 600 years. So we're having, the first event hasn't happened for 500, this one hasn't happened for 600, and it's in combination with a total solar eclipse, and it's going to be squaring Uranus, and we already talked about what that means. It's just, you can see how volatile it is, and you can see that people are going to be, it's a possibility that people are going to be rebelling. You see that Uranus energy, you see the Aquarius energy. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. They're both rebellion. And people are going to have to take control of their lives. We're heading into the age of Aquarius where it's really about, what do you want? Do you want to give up your control? Or do you want to do something about it now and take care of yourself and have your independence?
Okay, there's some big questions. I personally have personal sort of experience between Uranus and Saturn. I think mine was squaring, or my Uranus was squaring my Saturn or something like that for a couple of years, like a couple of years ago. And I can tell you it was pretty intense and pretty destabilizing. So I know the intensity of Uranus being destabilizing. I've already seen that in the world things have started to crack, but then it's like they've sort of started to mend. People are like, oh no, it's sort of going back to normal. Then there's been like another crack and people are like, whoa, and then it's sort of starting to mend. Who knows what's going to happen, but if there is just a massive split and crack and there's like no mending, it's like that could be chaotic. And
I'm glad you brought that up, because in 2021, there are going to be 3 different conjunctions with Saturn, which is control and the government, and Uranus. And that means that pretty much the whole year, except for April, August, September, and October, we're going to be experiencing what you said, where it's going to be tension, and then it's going to release a little bit, and then there's going to be tension. So we have to be ready for that. And I think the more that we prepare, that's why it's important to talk about it earlier on, because the more that you prepare, the more you're ready for those types of events that will happen, that could happen.
Totally. Okay, awesome. Do you have any other slides, or if you don't, you can unshare your screen?
Okay. All right.
Awesome. So it's a lot to digest. In terms of like moving forward for people, like if I'm hearing this for the first time, what the hell do I do?
It's a great question. The first thing, and this is what I did, I'm just going to tell you my personal experience. As soon as I started seeing the patterns and history, and I didn't want to see history repeating itself, I thought, well, first of all, the main theme is taking care of yourself financially. And I've watched several videos. I know that you've recommended some to me. I've also watched other videos and done research on what I believe to be something that's supportive financially. And one of the videos said that 10% of wealth you put into gold. And personally, I'm putting money into gold mining stocks because during a time of recession, which let's face it, that's what the astrology is showing and the economics, 10% is what they recommend that you put into that, and to put into stocks that are going to grow, and mining stocks will grow. And then cryptocurrency is something else I think is very good for people to look into. I have personally invested. I wouldn't recommend, but I'm just saying in terms of my experience, I definitely, I've done my research. I'm saying, like, do your research, but I think it's important that you understand that the dollar, it's very possible that that will, just the value of it will go down. And the reason why I say that is because in 1971, President Nixon took us off the gold standard. So we have nothing to back our money. And it's going to become, most likely, it will become more of a cashless society, which means that if you do your research and you look into cryptocurrency, that is something that would be beneficial.
I would also say that cryptocurrency is around is in line with the energy of Aquarius. It's like change, forward thinking.
Yes, exactly. And I think that, everything is going to become electronic. That's what I see. More of these meetings like what we're doing right now, more of these online. In fact, all online businesses are going to do a lot better than one-on-one. It's unfortunate, but we have to go with what the times are saying. And then I know the last one that I'm doing personally is buying physical gold and silver. And the reason why is because one of the economists, he said, if you stick gold in the ground and you keep it there and you take it out of the ground after, you could do this for hundreds of years. I mean, we're not going to be alive, but you can take it out of the ground and it doesn't lose its value. Nothing happens to it. It doesn't degrade. And actually, companies can use gold. It's applicable to different goods and services. So same thing with silver, although silver they say is a little bit riskier, but the two of them, you're not going to lose value off of it. It still stays the way it always has been. So those were some of the things that I did research on. I recommend, especially in the time of Gemini, where our North Node, I didn't say that, but our North Node's in Gemini, and basically do your research. Like, don't listen to everyone. You have to go in and fact check, because it's just a time where the news, anything you hear, you can't completely trust it 100%. You have to do your own work and look into it yourself.
Cool. And I would say fact check with your own intuition as well. Hopefully there's some guidance coming through from within. And yeah, I think I'm similar with my views on preparing financially. I think it's important. Like, we actually don't know what's going to happen. Uranus, you're explaining that's going to come in and potentially create a lot of instability, a lot of fear, a lot of chaos financially and in the environment potentially. So how can that show up? We're not sure. But what I personally do is I like to have a range of different things. And for me, I have some cash, I have some stuff in the bank, I have some stocks, I have some cryptocurrencies, I have some mining stocks, I have physical silver personally. And I've been buying silver for about 3 years. And that's because I've been aware that potentially something could happen. And also cryptocurrencies as well. I intuitively got a hit in 2017 to get involved in cryptocurrencies. And it's been a pretty wild ride, but I believe in the blockchain technology. I also believe that they're heavily manipulated. So it's very risky, but I ultimately believe we're moving towards the blockchain technology and moving away from like centralization. You were just saying about like freedom and taking your power back and these type of things about Aquarius potentially. It's like, yeah, right now we've lived in a world where there's been very centralized power through specific news reporting channels, through specific banks, specific government. And I think that's going to break in a way, and there might still be power there, but it's going to be distributed more so equally. And I feel like, yeah, some of that distribution will be in gold, silver, cryptocurrencies. But I'm definitely not recommending anyone anything. So that's just what I'm doing personally. But I have been in that world for a while, and it's a wild world to be in because there's not like a central bank that, you can just call up, and it's like, it's new and it's revolutionary. And it reminds me of a time, I think I watched this video maybe back in the 1980s or something. And it was on like a talk show, like, I don't know, an American morning talk show or something. And someone brought this card out, and it was a credit card. It was like a debit card. And they're like, yeah, like this is going to be like the new way, like we're going to buy stuff. And people were literally laughing at the person, being like, oh no, what is that? Like, why would I carry that when I've got money? Like, that's just a stupid thing. It's just stupid. Like, just why are you telling me that? And now it's like just obvious. So to be at the sort of the early adopting stage, and sometimes I'll be wrong, but being at that early stage can potentially mean like long-term rewards. Because when the media is posting it and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm in this and I've bought some silver, and already the value has equalized to be like, well, everyone's got it anyway. So yeah.
And I wanted to say, to add on to that, trust your instincts, because the great conjunction, the one that I talked about with Saturn and Jupiter, is happening in Aquarius. And like I said, that was 600 years ago that we've been waiting since then. And Aquarius is the interconnected networks without a center. So Capricorn is top-down pyramid structure, and Aquarius is where there's no person in charge. And so that fits perfectly with what you're saying and all this Aquarius energy. And I think, you have very good instincts. And like you were saying, we're not recommending anything, but I think it's important that people follow their intuition just like you are and that I am. And this is the time to do the research. Mercury's in retrograde. So retrograde means research. Anything with re in front of it, start making plans. You might not want to enact the plans yet, but get in, look at different articles, see what feels right to you.
Awesome. Well, I hope that's been helpful for anyone who's watching this video, just to give some perspective around how much impact planets can have. And we can just look out to like the moon, for example, and it's highly correlated with the tides of the ocean or women's cycles, or, you know, we're 70% water. So even just knowing that the moon 100% impacts the Earth in a massive way, well, then these other planets, you know, that are potentially 1,000 times bigger than the moon or whatever, they're going to have these huge impacts. And yeah, we're moving in interesting times, and we are so connected to these massive bodies of energy that are moving in the sky, and we can't. Yeah, like I'm a little human being. Like I'm like me versus Saturn. I like Saturn's gonna win.
He's pretty powerful. Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting times we're in. So thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with everyone, and just offering that gift.
You're welcome. My pleasure. I hope it serves whoever's watching.
Totally. And if anyone wanted to get in contact with you to find out more about astrology or these type of things, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so I have a website. Thanks to you, by the way, for being my coach and helping me get my website up and off the ground. But it's sonyakarl.com. So SONYAKARL.com. Thank goodness I have a short name. So you can find me there. I also have a blog on my website, and explains everything we've just talked about. So if you want to refer back to and you're more visual, it might help you to see what I've written there. But I want to say thank you so much, because I can tell everyone who's watching, you are the master of launch. So I highly recommend your services to other people.
Thank you. Okay, beautiful. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I've definitely learned some things, and yeah, journey well, everyone out there. Wishing you all the best until we meet again. And thank you again, Sonya.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.